Want to learn some really cool history about a Memphis, Tennessee distillery? Stick around. We'll talk to you today about Old Dominick, where they came from and where they're headed. Cheers. All in all, really excited to be at Old Dominick. First off, coming in the door, I was pretty taken back. I had no clue they had so many different products: vodkas, gins, whiskey, bourbons, and even the toddy. The shelves were really neat and clean. The store was really nice. This is their Palo Santo. It's research and development. This particular one's called Devil's Water. It tastes a lot like black licorice to me. The Huling Station is an MGP juice. So what happens there is Old Dominick takes their grains, their water even, because Memphis is known for their drinking water, their recipe, and sends that up to MGP, utilizes MGP's kitchen and chefs basically to distill that juice, and then it's sent back to Old Dominick to be aged. My favorite product there is going to be the single barrel. Absolutely delicious. Turned onto that a little while back, and that is what brought us to Old Dominick for the tour. And while we were there, I got to try the cask strength, and we brought a bottle of that home as well because it's absolutely delicious. Now they have the bonded and they have the straight whiskeys and the bourbon whiskeys, but all in all, I would say my favorite is going to be that single barrel and that cask strength. All right, guys, today we're in Memphis, Tennessee. We're at Old Dominick Distillery, and Keith was nice enough to just sit down with me a little bit today and tell me a little bit about his job here at Old Dominick and discuss the history a little bit of Old Dominick. So a few weeks ago, we were in Mississippi at the Spillway, bourbon hunting, and Josh and Justin gave me a bottle of Old Dominick that was a distiller pick. I absolutely fell in love with it. Decided we wanted to come here and do a tour, so I called, got Keith on the phone, luckily, and told him that we would be coming in, wanted to check things out, and if I could, get maybe 5 or 10 minutes with him just to kind of go through and discuss some things. So, Keith, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do here, and a little bit about the history of Old Dominick, where they've come from and where they're going.
So, Old Dominick started here in Memphis about 7 or 8 years ago. Okay. Is when they actually started distilling and all of that stuff here. But the history of Old Dominick goes back to 1800s, where Dominico came over as a 16-year-old immigrant.
Yeah.
All right. He was born in 1843, came over here in 1859, and started working for his uncles. During that time period, he decided he wanted his own business, and he'd established the Decanalian Company, okay, which is still in business today. So he went from wholesale into retail.
Okay.
But one of the first things that he was doing, of course, he was doing his imported stuff, fruits, vegetables, spices.
Right.
He was also doing Old Dominick whiskey.
I remember that.
And he was sourcing Old Dominick whiskey from the Susquehannock Distilling Company right outside of Cincinnati on the Ohio River in a little bitty town called Milton, Kentucky.
Okay.
And so they would distill for him, they would put it in a barrel, they would bring it down the Ohio River where it connected to the Mississippi River, bring it down the Mississippi River where he would pull it off the barges and put it in those brand new things called bottles.
Yeah, right? Back then that was new, sure.
Right. Or these ceramic jugs that they were using. And that was about the age statement of that whiskey was the time it took it to get from the Ohio River to the Mississippi River to the dock.
No kidding.
It was white whiskey. It was very raw.
Okay. But it was still whiskey.
It was still whiskey,
white oak, right?
Well, back then, people weren't drinking whiskey like we drink it now. They weren't looking for the oaky complexities.
Sure.
They were using it to get from point A to point B.
Understood.
So what happened then is about 1880, he comes up with his own recipe to take this white whiskey, add some things to it, and make it a little more palatable.
Okay.
So what he did is he added 7 different ingredients to it that were readily available to him off of his wagon. And so this became what was called Dominick's Toddy, which became a massive hit for him because it was much more palatable than the white whiskey, of course, because it had 4 spices, 3 citruses, it was proofed down, and there's even advertisements behind me that talk about how it was used medicinally in Memphis hospitals. And anytime you can get anything registered medicinally, you're going to do just well with it.
Right on.
So that's kind of what happened with that. It changed his whole entire business. Of course, he kept the food side. It was going along just fine. But the toddy really took off. And that really happened wonderfully until 1910.
Nice run.
Well, Tennessee passed Prohibition 10 years ahead of the Federal Act.
Right.
So we passed it in 1910, the federal government passed it in 1920.
Okay.
But the town at this point was run by a mayor named E.H. Crump. They called him Boss Crump. They called him Boss Crump for a reason, because that law was passed in the state capital of Nashville, and he didn't really care what happened in Nashville. He had Memphis to run.
That's right.
And he did. And Dominico at that point is sitting on top of about 85,000 gallons.
Ooh.
And he's like, Boss Crump, what am I going to do with this? He's like, you're not going to do anything different. You're going to keep doing what you're doing. We're just going to channel it a little differently. So he got rid of 85,000 gallons in that 10-year period. Wow. Actually, only in 9 years, because Dominico died at the age of 75 in 1919, 3 days before the ratification of the 18th or Prohibition Amendment.
Right, right.
If you start as a 16-year-old Italian immigrant, you end up as a millionaire in 1919 at 75 years old. That's a really good run.
Absolutely, especially coming from overseas to land here and follow his family.
Yes, yes.
And they were on the grocery business as well, right?
They were in the grocery business because, as we say around here, every great city at its backbone has an Italian grocer. I mean, every great city does.
And so, you know, what I read was that, you know, the startup of the actual whiskey that we know today as Old Dominic come from that toddy that somebody had found.
Right, right. The story that I have is that there were a few bottles of it they had found in some of the warehouses. And a few of them were sitting around. Some of the Canali family were like, this is our great-grandfather's whiskey. I'm sorry, our great-great-grandfather's whiskey.
Right.
We have to try this, right? Oh, yes, we definitely must try it. It's our great-great-grandfather's whiskey. None of us would be here if it wasn't for him, and this is what we need to do. And so they're like, okay, great, so we're gonna open this bottle. So as they open the bottle, the natural cork just disseminated into the inky black fluid, but they're all still like, we gotta do this, right? This is our great-great-grandfathers. We've got to try this, right? 3 of the 4 of them could not. The 4th one did, and he said it was the worst thing he'd ever had in his life, worse than any medicine he could have ever had.
I can only imagine.
Right, because it's 100-year-old whiskey with rancid and rotten fruit. It's not going to taste good.
Right.
But they intrigued him because it changed everything from the way he did business to even the logo that he was using. From a bear with bananas and palm trees, which doesn't make any sense to me in Memphis, Tennessee, but as an importer it may have, to the Dominicker rooster, which was the rooster that won all the fights when that was a sport back in that day.
Didn't know that history, okay.
It was also loosely based on the legacy brand Old Crow.
Okay.
He wanted something big and assuming. Dominicker rooster, it kind of made sense. And he used it as a cultural icon. And by that, I mean, he put it on barrels. He put it on the sides of taverns so people could go in and say, I want that. Without necessarily...
All about branding and stuff.
Yes, without not necessarily knowing how to spell Dominic's toddy.
Right.
Right? So, but it intrigued them because, again, it had been such a success. And so they sent the rest of the bottle to California where they reverse engineered it.
Okay.
And they were like, okay, in 1880 it would have had these ingredients in it. And the Canali family was like, well, we want to make it now. How do we make it now? Well, if you want to make it now, these are the ingredients you need to incorporate. So that was the impetus to get the Canali family back into distillation after Prohibition.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. And so we're going to do a tour a little bit later and see some of the things that happen here. But, you know, tell us a little bit about what's going on here in the 9 years and what's gotten you guys to where you are now. Because, I mean, I honestly, I would say I've been around whiskey most of my life. I didn't know of it until it was shared with me, and then I was blown away by it.
I think what's happened, not only in whiskey, but in other areas, is this big emphasis on things local, right? So whether it was a craft distillery or a craft brewery or something like that, it was something that was made in your hometown. And I think that has a lot to do with it. So when I started enjoying whiskey, we'll say, 15 or 18 years ago, it wasn't around. And I'd had a conversation with one of the grandsons, not the great-great-grandsons, but the grandsons of the Canali family.
That's awesome.
And he told me, we're bringing back this brand called Old Dominic. And I was like, okay, this is great. He said, yeah, we're going to make it here. And I'm like, okay, we'll see how that goes. Because sometimes you can be very cynical about things like that. And so time goes on, they start doing what they're doing, they start distilling. And then I start hearing from my other friends about, this is really good juice. This is really good whiskey. Okay, well, let's give it a try.
Right.
Sure enough, I completely agreed with them. And I couldn't have been more proud.
That's awesome.
To have a whiskey that's that good that was made in our hometown, in downtown Memphis.
Right.
I mean, to me, that was just such a great thing.
And it's very unique. You're not going to confuse this on a blind with many other whiskeys, in my opinion.
No.
And it's not unique like, oh, it's unique like, wow. Like,
because I really believe it because it's the way they design the mash bills. I mean, we have a high rye bourbon that is 44% rye.
Wow.
So it is a spice bomb.
It is.
But it doesn't linger. It's got a really smooth finish. It just peels right off.
That's right. And it's got complexity, man. I mean, the single barrel is all I've tried, and today we'll try some others, but man, really blown away. And
the difference between that high rye bourbon and our Tennessee whiskey, which I didn't realize there was that much of a difference, but there really is. The mash bill on the Tennessee whiskey is 75% corn, 13% rye, 12% malted barley. So it's going to have a little higher malted barley content. So it's going to make it a little bit sweeter. That higher corn content is going to help with that. And it's the Lincoln County process where they drip it through the sugar maple charcoal, which will designate it as Tennessee whiskey. To me, makes all kinds of a difference in the flavor in that versus bourbon. And that's one of the things I try to educate people about.
Sure.
Is because Tennessee whiskey has been in such a narrow lane for a long time.
Correct.
There are just a couple of brands that you knew.
Right.
Now there are they're right at 30 distilleries in Tennessee.
Wow.
And a big majority of them make a Tennessee whiskey. And they're all as different as the bourbons that you've had from all the other different manufacturers, different distilleries.
Unique. Well, man, I thank you for sitting down with me today. I'm excited to do the tour and see what we learn. We'll do
some special things for you.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to see
We're going to make you a big Old Dominic fan before you get out of here.
All right. Well, guys, stay tuned, and we'll do a little bit more video on the tour and hopefully teach you a little bit more about them.
It's very specific to what the flavors that we want to make, as opposed to a white corn, which is going to have a different flavor profile. Make sense? Yes? Okay. That's our wheat. Isn't that just pretty? By the way, all of our grain comes from all of the states that start with I, except for Idaho, because Idaho makes potatoes, right? This is our rye. And by the way, the reason that, and I asked the guys in production, why don't we make a 100% rye whiskey? And they said, go look at the jar. And I'm like, what do you mean? They said, notice how sticky it is. So the grain of the rye is a stickier grain, so if you start distilling with it, you have to dedicate an entire system to it. Because once you get the rye in it and it starts sticking to the copper and stuff, it's always going to be a rye. That make sense? So, but that's that. The interesting thing, the one that's interesting to me is malted barley. What does that even mean? It means it's sprouted. See it? See how it's germinated? So when you add malted barley to these starches, you get sugars. Make sense? When it starts cooking? So it gets ground up, comes across here by the roller mill, comes into this 1,600-gallon cooker, where it's going to cook for about 2.5 hours. All right? At 185 degrees is when they add the rye. I'm sorry, when they add the corn. And then they're going to cook it for a half hour. And then after that, about 135 degrees is where they're going to add the rye. And they're going to cook it for another half hour. They're going to let it cool down to 85 degrees is where they add the malted barley. Now keep in mind some of the previous batches in there too. So after all of that is done, it's cooked about 2.5 hours. So after that, it goes into fermentation. Y'all want to go see what's going on in fermentation? And they said,
Yep.
Yes, okay. Y'all come on back. Come on down. We'll stand between these two. Let's see what's going on here. So this is what it looks like when it's empty. All right. So the other thing that you add to this mash when you're done is yeast. All right. Yeast is going to do three things. Yeast is going to produce heat. It's going to produce CO2, and it's going to produce alcohol. You can smell the CO2, right? All right. Put your hand over this. Isn't that crazy? Feel that heat? All right. So this has been in here for probably about 5 days. Yeah, close to it, right? And this is Tennessee whiskey, y'all. So this is the 75% corn, 13% rye, 12% malted barley mash bill for recipe. And it'll sit in here for about a week. And then from there it'll go to distillation. Now, y'all want to do something you never can do at another distillery that I've been to? Y'all want to taste it?
No.
Yeah, sure you do. They won't let me back in Jack Daniels, but you can't taste it there, by the way. But the one over there that you can see the coils in, the reason the coils are in there, it runs cold water through there because that yeast has to operate in this temperature window. If it gets too hot, it mutates. If it gets too cold, it quits working. So that's why you have to moderate your yeast temperature. That's why this feels so hot. Now, walk over to this side. You put your hand over it, you feel the heat coming out of it. So you think it would be hot, right? And I'll do this so y'all know you're not going to die. I'm going to try it. Let me see what it tastes like. You're welcome to do that. I'm telling you, this is something you can never do at another distillery. Take advantage of it. Because what I like to do is I like for people to try it now and then try it on the other side after it's aged so you can see what it's like. Yeah. Just don't drop anything in here, okay? The yeast is going to take care of anything over the week's period anyway. It's going to eat all the impurities out anyway. We use open-faced fermenters because we're in a closed space, so we're really not worried about any bacteria. How did it taste?
Gross.
How did it taste?
Gross.
Sweet
Gross.
and sour to me, like
See, to me, it's got a little bit of sweetness to it,
It's got a tang.
a little sweet and sour. Yeah, yeah.
but you can tell it's coming, right? You can taste that alcohol in it. You can tell it's coming. That's why you see it bubbling just a little bit, and that's the yeast doing its job. I think this one you can see is even more active. You see it bubbling. But this one's real fresh.
So these are the different stages? How many?
Yes,
days?
yes, different days. In other words, that the one that we saw that was crusted over, clearly been in here the longest.
5 days you said?
Up to 7, up to 5 to 7 days.
So this is about what, 1 day? 2 days?
Yes, yes. And you can tell, I mean, this is super fresh. And that's almost like sour lemonade. Try it if you want. But yeah, it's kind of cool because
That's exactly what it
happens
tastes
is as
like.
it ferments, the heavier grains rise to the top, forming that crust. All right, and so underneath it, of course, it's going to remain liquid. We're going to continue to turn over. They're looking for a pH level that's going to give them the most yield out of that alcohol. Okay, make sense? All right. From there, there's a pump that's right underneath this one. They open this valve and it pulls everything out. Then it fires it through this shiny silver pipe that you see right behind me, and that goes straight into distillation. Let's walk in there. Come on in. Everything goes into the beer well. 2 of those fermenters are going to fill up that beer well. From there, come on around. It's going to go into this continuous column still. Mash is going to come in from the top, from the bottom. It's steam fed. When it hits in the middle, the alcohol starts to vaporize. Okay. And you can actually see, because it's not running, you can see the plates down here in that second little portal that have holes in them. And what that does is that allows the vapors to lift up through there and keeps the mash down. So what happens as it vaporizes, it goes into the condenser on your right. It comes into this spirit safe right here, where they check it for proof and purity. And then once they get into that proof, which is usually about 100 to 110, we're going to distill it again because we want it to go into the barrel a little bit hotter than that. And so we're going to distill it again. And this thing called a double work, the little onion head right there. And you can see the pipe going up to it and over to the condenser on the left. From that point, it comes into this spirit safe right here where it's in checked for purity and to proof and to make sure it's ready to go into a barrel. The reason that you see so much copper in distilleries is copper naturally emulsifies bad alcohol. Okay? That's why you see green on the inside of that. Okay? Because that's naturally taking those impurities out and making it cleaner all the time. Make sense? Yes? Okay. This right here is the difference in bourbon and Tennessee whiskey. Okay, this is sugar maple charcoal. So when your distillate has to go through here, your spirit has to go through here for it to be a Tennessee whiskey. It has to be made in the state of Tennessee. Okay, all the other rules of bourbon apply. Whiskey's worldwide. Bourbon in the United States, 95% of it comes from Kentucky. The rest of us that are able to distill it do so with Tennessee whiskey, made right here with this process. There's no regulation as to how much, how deep this has to be, just as long as it hits it. And theory is that if it hits it, what it does is it takes out some of the bitterness and some of the good jitters, smooth it out, you know, like the song says. Right? So from there, we're ready to go into a barrel, which looks like that. We'll look at some more of those upstairs. We'll come on down. We'll show you this one here because I want you to see the inside. Because that's not something you see upstairs. It's when we go into aging line. So the inside of this barrel is cooked to a number 4 or a alligator char. Level 4 char is West Tennessee white oak. When we put it in, we're going to put it in from the top. We're going to fill it to 53 gallons full. And that's the char layer, by the way. That's why they call it an alligator char. See the texture? That acts as a filter layer. Because 75% of your flavor and your color are going to come from the barrel. All right? That's why you see that red line. That's how far into the barrel it went to get that color. And that's 4 to 6 years. Okay? When they dump them, they usually get about 40 to 42 gallons out because they're going to lose that much to the barrel and the rest of it they're going to lose to evaporation, also known as angel ship. So if you walk into one of those huge warehouses, one of those brick houses in Kentucky, and you walk in and it smells like heaven, that's one. It's called the angel ship. It's evaporating out of it. Every distillery makes vodka and gin because you do not have to age it. You can make it one day, sell it the next. That's our vodka product. That's our gin basket. Basically, that's where we make our gin. Is what I'm trying to say. Combination of a pot and a column still. The silver bullet on the side is what makes gin taste like gin. So as it vaporizes, it goes through those botanicals. Think about gin as the first flavored vodka because it starts as a corn base, okay? Unprecipitated grain neutral spirit of corn. That's what's in those little chunks back there. So the biggest difference in vodka and whiskey, they both have, and ours, they both have the same recipe. They both have the same mash bill, but the vodka is distilled at 190 proof. Whiskey has to be distilled at 160 or more. Has to go in the barrel at 125 or more in a new charcoal barrel. Cool? All right. Let's go to the top. Old Dominick whiskey, Tennessee whiskey. It tells you when it was put in. So it kind of gives you an idea of how old it is. All right. Barrel number 1000. Right there. Okay. All the way down to, I think we're the low 30s or something like that. Y'all come on down this way with me. And as you can see, some of these are marked. Those are some people that have done like a BP. They've done a barrel pick. All right. So West Tennessee char number 4, West Tennessee white oak. So that gives you an idea there. This is the barrel that we sent to them. We're done dumping it. The barrel number 147 right there. So that's how old is this barrel? The fill date was 5/19/2017.
Oh, that's a one.
So 7 years. Y'all come on down this way with me. Why are these barrels on the side, Keith? You said that they were on, they were like this. Well, and by the way, there's number 184 over there. Because some of these are being pulled for single barrel tastings. So when you do that, it's easier to lay them on their sides and just drill from the top and be able to get your sample out of there. Some of these you'll see stuff on the sides of them. No, that's not mold. That is some of the tannins still seeping out of the wood. Although the wood, before they make the barrels out of it, is aged about 1.5 years, it's still going to have some of those tannins in it. So that's what you see coming out of the side. So that's what the inside of that barrel looks like. All right, this is even a more extreme example. All right. So.
I think we take for granted the trees it takes to make all these barrels and where are all these trees coming from, right?
So
That's something that...
It's an interesting thing because the Canales, like so many other people, bought farmland north of here. All right, so all of our wood comes from the Canale farms.
Oh, wow.
So we source our own barrels.
Nice.
We barrel 1,800 barrels a year.
1,800 barrels a year.
Is
Okay.
approximately what we do. Now, to give you an idea of comparison, my friends at Heaven Hill, 1,500 barrels a day.
That's right.
Jim Beam does 2,300 a day.
But-
Y'all come on down this way. Let's go try some of this stuff. Y'all ready to drink? The first one on your left, remember I said something about healing station, right? So this is sourced, and on the back of the bottle it says crafted and bottled by Old Dominick Distillery, okay? So it is a wheat whiskey. What does that mean? It means it's 83% wheat, 12% corn, and 5% malted barley. The reason I know that is because it is printed on the back of our label. I think that is super cool when you have the mash bill on the bottles. Doesn't have that straw taste. What do you think? It's a 95 proof, by the way. And by the way, it is what we call our trolley stop series, and it's Orleans Street. See, there you go. What do you think? Yes, no, maybe?
It's all right.
It's good. It's got a little bit of a sour finish, but it's real good up front.
Right.
Heat's low on it.
And peels off pretty quickly.
It does.
Does not hang around. Doesn't have that finish that I call regret, right?
Correct.
All right.
It's got a ton of flavor.
Since I figured you guys were all pretty much, whiskey people, I went ahead and pulled our bonded, okay? Our bonded Tennessee whiskey. You're gonna go through that Lincoln County process, that sugar maple charcoal.
That's smooth.
Isn't it?
It's smooth.
That's better than.
But it's got just a little bit of kick for 100 proof, right?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, just to know, so just to remind you, hey, you're a drinking
Forget you.
whiskey, right? What do you think? Yes, no, maybe?
It's pretty good.
In front, this is our Tennessee whiskey single barrel.
Oh man, that's phenomenal.
It's
That's what
phenomenal.
brought me here.
Isn't it good?
Yes.
This is what I was sipping on last night.
Molasses, like sweet.
Tennessee whiskey?
It doesn't drink 124 in my
It doesn't.
opinion.
No, it doesn't punch like that to me.
Mm. No, it rolls on like real slow, but it still doesn't have a strong.
No, no.
What's the age statement on it?
7 years. So this is our 9-year age statement, trolley stop series number 1, the Hewlings Avenue 9-year age statement straight bourbon whiskey.
Oh man, that's super sweet.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, that's sweet.
And this one is different anyway because it's got that higher rye content. So anything that's going to have higher rye is going to be spicier.
Oh yeah.
The difference between white bread and brown bread. It does. It does.
That rye rolls on nice.
Just hits you right in the mouth.
And then that's MGP juice?
That's MGP juice.
I'll tell you what, MGP with some years on it is something I really
It
love.
really
That's
is.
really good.
Isn't it good?
But now with it being MGP, you said it was still your mash bill, your recipe, and your aging process.
Yes.
So basically you just send the ingredient to them and they do it.
We use their kitchen. We
Gotcha.
use your kitchen.
And they're
We-
cooks, I guess, right? Whoever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they were like, okay, what are you making? We're making this. This is the recipe we want. Will you distill it for us while we're building a distillery?
That's really good.
And they were like, yes. And when you're done with it, put it in these barrels and ship it
No,
back
you're
to
right,
us, and
George.
we'll
That's
age it
good.
down here.
It is.
So
My
I will
first
tell you
first sip
that,
of it, I was like, man, it's good. I don't know if I
next
love
couple
it,
of
but the
years,
more I drink it,
this
I
is gonna-
really
you're not
like
gonna
it.
see this anymore. We're sunsetting Hewling Station because it doesn't make any sense for us to make it here and continue to have them distill it up there. Right?
You guys still have some?
We do. Matter of fact, and all of this we have in the gift shop, and a couple of them we have only in the gift shop. That's why I wanted to make sure you guys had a chance at it. Okay. Definitely this bourbon is only there. We just got that back in from a distributor, and we were out of it forever.
What you
So
think about it?
I was real thankful we got it back in because I need another bottle of bourbon, don't you know?
Mama don't like whiskey.
There's this app that I just discovered that's really cool, and it's called Only Drams. Am I familiar with it? Yeah. Okay, so you too?
That's funny.
So I scanned all the bottles that I had, and came up a little short of 200. Okay, which I will tell you. Are we taking this? No. Cast strength. That's your next to last one. Okay, 121 proof. All right, aged 6 years. Bourbon whiskey. Here we go. Try the chocolate with this. Try the cheese with it. See what you think.
It's good. Doesn't drink that hot.
Doesn't drink that hot, but it's got that punch.
Brown sugar?
A lot of brown sugar to me. What do y'all think? Y'all kind of quiet. Of these, the two I am drinking the most of right now are the wheat and the Tennessee single barrel.
I've got to have a cask.
Now,
along
as
with that
it
single
gets
barrel.
colder,
That's
I
delicious.
switch to bourbon because
Man,
I want to
that
believe
is so
it warms
sweet.
me up. You know what I
And
mean?
red one too.
And
I
in
do
the
too, but
summertime,
I don't
when
know if it's
hot, I
worth
like
it on the
some
hunt.
lighter,
Yeah.
right?
I'm not gonna be silly.
But those are the two I'm drinking the most.
That
of.
cask drink's
That
delicious.
cask is good.
Isn't it good? 6 year statement.
You said 120.
1?
121.16.
Didn't drink it.
0.16, like we're getting that scientific with
Yes,
it?
yes.
How many decimal points? We're going out like pi, 4.1, 3.14
There's
was
a
that?
funny story. Our regular bourbon, let me see if I can find it. Our regular bourbon, it's not out here. Where is it?
I'm gonna tell him in a minute. It's called Devil's
Our
Water,
regular bourbon,
and then that new one that they just
we
released.
reformulated a little bit.
The
since
cookies,
we
all
changed
the
over
cookies
from,
is gone. They don't have any more.
Fueling station to Old Dominic, and it went from 100 proof to a 90.1 proof.
Wow.
90.1. Area code for Memphis, Tennessee, 901. Aw, see what we did there?
Yeah, right. That's funny.
And the guys in the lab downstairs getting to that 0.1. They're like, can't we just stop at 90? No, we need that 0.1 because of the whole
Right.
thing. All right, what do you think? So far, so good?
Yes,
Everybody
sir.
happy? Yeah? All right, special pour time. Yay! Research and development, all right, brings us San Paulo Devil's Water. Straight bourbon whiskey finished in oak beer barrels. Okay, we send a used barrel over to our friends over here at Meddlesome Brewery. They run their oak beer through it, okay? And then they send us the barrel back. We run aged bourbon through it, and then we come out with San Paulo's Devil's Water. I've only seen this one other time, and by the time I could get down here 4 years ago, it was gone.
So, Doug,
Single barrel.
I want to make sure I understand this. They use the bourbon in the barrel.
Right, send the barrel to the brewery.
I said that
They
we
run
tried
their,
this at Spillway, but maybe we didn't. It was a label like that, though. I'm gonna look back at the video.
Belgian strong ale.
Unique licorice? Am I getting black licorice?
Right,
Licorice?
Barrel back.
right.
Put the bourbon back in that barrel.
Well, what they've done is that they age
Absolutely.
their beer in that
Absolutely
barrel,
not.
and then they send us the new barrel back. And by
Oh,
that
Daniel,
point,
I'm
it's
coming
time
for you on this
us
one,
to
son.
roll that beer into the wood. We
Daniel
were
told me this
worried
was one to have right here.
How long
You gotta like black licorice. If you like black licorice, this is the one for sure. You get black licorice on that? Did you try it?
So what the bourbon start off with?
See Mama's face when she tries it.
Well, it started off as containers. That's what's in those.
What do you smell?
Okay, so when we dump the bourbon, we'll put it in one of those, and then when
Fair.
we get the barrel back, we'll run it back through because it's already aged at that point. So, Devil Water, check it out. It is 54.96 proof.
How much rye is in that?
I don't know because I'm not exactly sure which.
It's hanging around like
Yeah.
rye.
I want to say it's that high rye bourbon, that it would be that 44%. See what you
What do you
think.
taste?
The tasting notes on this. This is one of the things I love about working here. She puts flavor
Kentucky
notes on.
hug.
Notes on the nose, rye spice mixed with milk chocolate, caramel, and herbs.
It's definitely spicy.
I get black licorice, but I do get the chocolate after it sits on the palate for a minute. Licorice for sure.
See, and I'm not a big licorice fan, but this I can drink.
Yeah,
This I can drink.
You've got to
What
like.
you think?
I think you got to like licorice for that one. For,
I'm not.
It's nice, isn't it? I mean, for something that's totally different, I think it's pretty nice.
it is definitely that. Totally different.
Did I say it was special pour night?
You did.
Well,
Look, you got something out
so when they were setting up in here, I'm like, pay no attention to the man with no hair. This is the other one that we just came out with week before last. It's called Memento Mori. All right.
Memento
It
Mori.
is, a 54.45 proof.
109.
Also a bourbon aged. Bourbon finished in an American barley wine beer barrel. Cinnamon and cherry dominate the nose with a fun nutty toffee note with rye spice stirred with dark chocolate and brown sugar on the palate. I say we try it. Yes?
Yes.
All right.
If it's fabulous, is it for sale?
Yes, it is.
Line
It is.
'em up,
And
knock
that
'em
was the
down.
other thing too. I make sure that everything that we have is available because I hate to go somewhere and somebody be like, "Oh, this is great. Oh, but we don't have any." Oh, well, why'd you get it?
That happened on this local space.
Did it?
That's a good shit. You gotta buy it.
Yeah, right. I mean, what's the point? I mean,
Oh, nice.
Wow, thanks.
of course. And because you always want to make a really good old fashioned, and we want you to have a really nice glass that reminds you of your visit here with us. So, and if you haven't had one of the old fashions at the bar, I highly recommend them. Specifically today. Today's a very important day here in town. Today is Elvis's anniversary of his death. And so tonight, if you are looking for something fun to do,
That's actually good for me.
you good for that?
Yes, sir.
You can follow me down to the Candlelight Vigil at Graceland.
He was
It's
showing me
open
some
to the
pictures of
public.
that. That is crazy. That's
There will
fantastic.
be somewhere between 25,000 and 40,000 people.
Don't
there.
forget me, Keith.
And it is the most parallel universe experience you will ever
All right,
witness.
let's see.
Every year.
They do it every year. And it's a very cool experience.
That's unique on the nose, huh?
You were a big Elvis fan.
I'm sorry?
You're a big Elvis fan.
It's got some
Yes
funk
and
on
no.
it, doesn't it?
I mean, I grew up here, so everybody in this town has an Elvis story, right? We chased him home one night from the airport, which is really kind of fun.
It's not what I would run to. It's got a good
And that was the most
mouthfeel.
we ever saw of him. But yeah,
It's got low
been,
hug.
You know, everybody here has one. I
smell something, but I don't know what it
being in town. So,
It's got some chocolate in there. It's not one. It's not one. It's not. Yes, but it's not far from it. And on my palate, like I don't like
let's
it.
talk about favorites real quick. I'm gonna start down here. Talk to me. For that first one, that wheat. Yeah.
This one's,
This memento mori.
Yeah, I didn't like this last one.
Did you not? It's interesting. It's just it's a very interesting flavor to me.
It's unique for sure.
For what was your favorite?
I said the weak one, I think she copied me, but
Well, it's good that y'all like the same things.
Yeah, that works well.
Works out. I'm told. Anyway, tell me.
I like vodka.
Vodka. Okay. Okay.
What was that on the lineup? Did she have that in?
No, but we can take care of that too. We'll
Right.
Figure out that. What about you? Sir? Talk to me. Talk to me, Brandon.
I'm single barrel and cask strength all day.
On the cast strength and the single barrel.
Yep,
Both
those
of
are my two. Yeah.
So man, I like three. I like the single barrel Tennessee whiskey. I like that 9-year bourbon,
Right.
and that cask strength bourbon is really good too.
That
It's hard for me to pick-
That 9-year was good. I mean, it really is.
The 9-year was absolutely the smoothest.
Right.
But I like all three.
The one in the middle. It's one of their MGP juices. That's. Guys, there you have it. That's the tour of Old Dominic. We really enjoyed it. We thank those guys for sticking with us. If you guys stuck with us this far, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave us a comment on what you thought.